Could be worse. Oh. Oh no. You know what? This isn't so bad. Whoa, I didn't say it was good either. Just hear me out on this. You might come out better than you came in. I spent a grand total of 3 streams and way too many hours collecting my own statistics on this just to see how bad it was. Since I kinda clipped every single match I played for this, it's starting to become a bit of a burden on my hard drive, so here I am today to share with you my own homegrown statistics and my interpretations of them so you, the viewer, can get a clearer picture of what's actually been going on since the last BR update. For the first part, I'm going to go through the statistics and see how every single BR individually has been affected. After that, I'm going to go through a bigger picture and see exactly how the matchmaker has fared overall with all these BR changes. And then finally, I'm going to go through the, problems, which will probably be a bit of stating the obvious, but kinda has to be done. Real quick, before I get into the stats a bit deeper, I gotta explain how I got said stats so it makes a bit more sense to you and gives them credibility. So what I did is I separated them into 3 individual groups, early jets, mid-tier jets, and late-tier jets, and of those groups, every single plane that was flown within them, I flew 3 times, wrote down the BR spread, and gave a little notation to say, hey, this was an up tier, down tier, or maybe even add its own BR. And then after that, I gave it a total suffer score, which is just how I felt flying that plane in the moment. And then finally, I gave it a queue time rating. Short is for if I noticed at any point an insta-queue, average is if I noticed nothing at all, and long is if I noticed the queue was taking abnormally long. So, kicking things off with the lower BR bracket, starting at 7-3, I tested the Horton 229, the MiG-9, the Vampire, and the R2Y2. All 4 of them saw at least one 8-3 match, and in those 8-3 matches was at most, maybe 1 or 2 8-3 planes. Which really isn't something new, because we've had the non-BIS MiG-15 at 8-3 beforehand, which was bullying these BRs anyhow. And to be completely honest with you, the F-89s at 7-7 are a bigger issue for a lot of these planes here, especially the Vampire. That thing suffered pretty hard. And in terms of queue times, they were just average. Now for 7-7, I flew out the F-84G Thunderjet, the MD-450 Barguan, and the J-29 Tunnin. My experience goes as follows. No, don't play this BR. It's not worth it. It's a nightmare. Currently, you're constantly getting up tier to Sabres and MiGs, and in that meta, you're just too far gone to be able to compete whatsoever. At this moment in time, for the foreseeable future, no, stay away, bad, it's not worth it. And in terms of queue times, well, I think the Bakugan was the only one to mark as long, and everything else is average, so I would generally stay away from 7-7 until this BR shit gets fixed. The last of the starter jets is the F-2H Banshee at 8.0. It was honestly able to hold its own just fine for what it is, but it's not meta by any means whatsoever. I mean, against MiGs and Sabres, it suffers a little bit, but it is definitely way better than most of the 7-7s. I'd honestly expect a fair amount of 8.3 to 8.7 matches in any 8.0 jet, but if the mediocre Banshee is anything to go by, 8.0 should be a safe BR. Now, moving on to mid-range jets, starting at 8.3 of the 2 best planes of this patch, the MiG-15 BIS and the F-25 Sabre. Honestly, there's no better time to play either of these jets. The matchmaker is so damn full to both of them that you're guaranteed going to get MiGs versus Sabres every time. You're not stomping, nor are you getting stomped. Really, in either of these planes, it's just peak fun for whatever you play, and with great queue times to boot. For 8.7, the G91R3 and the J29F Tunnin were flown. It's really just like flying 8.3, but occasionally you get 9.7 up tier. That's about it. Another great matchmaker to play. In the 9.0 range, I tested out the Super Mystère V2 and the MiG-17. They're both in a weird middle-of-the-road matchmaker where they either get up tier to 9J spam where the Super Mystère V2 gets to sit in its own little corner and cry, or you get down tier to the 8.3 meta where both of these planes get really fun. If you're flying 9.0, make sure you take a plane that can dodge a high G missile or two, otherwise you're just gonna stuffer. And finally for the mid-range, I tested out the F-40 Sabre at 9.3. It's just an F-Sabre, fully up tier to BR. You get to chase down way faster planes, and that's about it. I got no down tiers in this dataset, but the fact that the Su-7 is the same BR as this thing is just beyond stupid, considering how annoying it is for 8.7 planes to face. And now for the high BR jets, starting at 9.7, I tested out the F-100D Super Sabre, the MiG-19S, the MiG-21F-13, the G-91YS, and the J-32B Lancet. It's really just the same situation as 8.3. You're fighting a lot of other 9.7 planes, and when you do see any other 10.7 or 8.7 planes, it's only in very limited quantities, making for a reasonably balanced matchmaker. While, yes, I do have to admit that 19 is absolutely the top dog here, it's not enough to be firmly planting it into the overpowered territory. Pretty much every plane of this BR should still be fine. It's not as good as the 8.3 meta, but it's sure enough just fine, with great queue times to beat. And as for the 10.0 planes, both the French Jag and the T2 were flown out. They also kind of got an indirect buff since there's a whole host of 9.7s being played right now, bringing a lot of the 10.0 planes down to 9.7 matchmaking. I mean, I would still be cautious of playing 10-0, because you do get full up tiers every once in a while, but it's definitely playable right now. And that's all of them. TLDW, 7.7 is AIDS, 8.3 and 9.7 slap, and everything else is a bit of a mixed bag.
Skip it up and that up.
And now, for my own interpretations of the overall health of the matchmaker, and the best way I can describe it is, we have achieved decompression. I mean, not really in the way that you're thinking, because we don't have 11-0 right now, but at the cost of 7-7, we now have the 9-7 BR range. Which, I mean, of course that sucks, because we lose 7-7 as a matchmaker. But it's amazing, because it shows just what a little bit of decompression could do, in terms of revitalizing planes that were sent to the shit yard just one patch beforehand. But then again, one BR jump really isn't enough, because we can look no further than 9-0 and 9-3, which, I mean, the fact that the F-40 Sabre is an entire BR above the F-25 Sabre is just mind-boggling to me. And on top of that, it's at the exact same BR as the Su-7 and the Yak-30, which both have a ridiculous power advantage on top of them, and the Yak-30 gets R-60s. Like, what the fuck, Gaijin, this is not okay. At this point, 10.7 just isn't enough. We should be at 11.3 at least to give 9.093 a bit of breathing room, let alone make 7.7 viable again. Though I digress. At this point, I've said all that I need to say, and you can just add me to the list of shitters calling for more decompression only to get a nah fam from Gaijin. To sum this section up, and really to get across the most important point here, this patch was a prime example why decompression to at least 11.0 would work fine, since it effectively killed 7.7 as a playable BR, giving us a pseudo-decompression, and yet we had queue times largely unaffected. For the planes that weren't compressed to high hell, that is. Maybe this was Gaijin's plan all along, to have a soft testing of the 11.0 BR cap. Or maybe they just got lucky. Either way, we'll find out an update. If it wasn't obvious, I'm really new to this, so I mean, I thank you for sticking around as long as you did, and if you're wondering what the direction of this channel is going to be, I'm set to make ego boosters to make me look better than I am, more low-effort videos, me talking down to you by stating the obvious, and complaining, because that will always and forever do good in the YouTube space. Which, I mean, I kid, of course, but if you want to go reach out to me, I should be streaming on Twitch relatively often, and I will also be in a new Discord I made, so go check those out. I mean, if you want to.